forwarders commission. This is usually just like with the commission for the brokers. It is usually between 2.5 to 5% of the tariff calculated over the net freight. So after all the charges have been taken care of, the remaining money that should come as something like the what do you call it? Is the what do you call that? It's not interesting. The profit to the company, then they will charge between 2.5 to 5% as their commission, okay, which is a lot of money. So if you get very good lines and you are working with them, then it becomes, and you are able to book a lot of cargo for them, you make a lot of money, okay. Sometimes some of the shipping companies will try to bypass the freight forwarders and get the cargoes themselves because they don't want to pay this 2.5 to 5%. It's a lot of money to them. And therefore, they will try to bypass the freight forwarders and deal directly with the cargo owners, and then so that they can give them the what do you call it? The system rebates and so on. So, freight forwarders, it is up to you to also lobby the government so that they put certain regulations in place so that companies, the shipping companies, is it swag? Swag? Is that what they are called? Swag? Yeah. So that they don't try to bypass you. Otherwise, you also lose your business. It's very important. Then we have the non-vessel owning common carriers. Some people do not have vessels, but they operate as if they have vessels. Okay, they offer what we call the house-to-house concept, and therefore the charges and tariffs are for the entire transport. Okay, the separate cost of sea transport and land cost transport is not visible, so they will charge as if they were a shipping line. They do all the consolidation, take your cargoes, and then they go to negotiate with the ship owners and buy space within the ship to ship their containers. So they ship the containers as if the containers belong to them. Okay. So we have those non-vessel common carriers, non-vessel owning common carriers, Nvocc. Then we have the consolidators, and these usually, like we said, they charge per ton or per space measurement tariffs. That is where the volume of the cargo is what will determine how much they will charge you. Let me see. If we still have time, then let's take some 5 minutes break, please. Payable by charterer as remuneration for carrying the cargo on a named ship to the owner under a voyage charter party. So freight would only apply in voyage charter parties. We don't use the terminology freight when we are speaking about time charters. Okay. Now the calculation of the freight rate for the voyage charter will be based on the nature and volume of cargo, the distance over which the cargoes are to be carried, the port costs in the load and discharge ports, the fuel prices, and also the level of freight charged in tram shipping would also have a bearing on it because it would have some demand and supply aspects as well. So it is, as you can see, it's virtually like what we saw in the liner shipping, isn't it? All the elements, the nature and volume of cargo, the distance, the port cost, loading costs, fuel costs, all come in. So when we are looking at the remuneration for voyage charter parties, it's just like for liner shipping. Okay. The last item, it says the level of freight charged in tram shipping is also subject to the supply and demand, because sometimes some of the ship owners they come into the liner business, and vice versa. Sometimes the liner people also try to get into the tram business, depending on the level of supply and demand. The more ships you have, the less will be the amount of cargo to carry, and therefore sometimes the tram ships will try to go outside to look for some cargo. And the more cargoes you have, the more would be the tendency for the prices to go up. And then you see sometimes the liners also coming in to take a part of the cake. So it also depends on the level of the supply and demand in the market. In tanker business, we have what we call the world scale. They have, the freight is determined for the parties, and it incorporates the port cost and all the other charges for the most important oil ports. And then they've come up with a scale. Instead of an exact figure, freight figure, they'll say world scale. For example, if they say world scale plus 100, everybody knows what it stands for. For example, if world scale plus 100 means that you are going to pay, maybe per ton is going to be $100, then everybody is settled in his mind. You don't have to haggle over the price. So they have a world scale used for pricing the oil. Some fuels, some oil ports charge more, but they've looked at all these various oil ports and come out with a scale. So once the scale is fixed, then you cannot say that it's because I'm going to the port of, let's say, Dubai or wherever, and therefore I should charge more. Once you call the world scale figure, everybody understands it because it has been based upon the various port costs in the various destinations and other factors taken into account, and they determine that freight rate. As it says that chartering of tankers is a specialized field in the chartering world. If you want to go into chartering, that is, you want to become a broker and you want to go into the oil field, then you have to know more about that aspect because it's a bit more special. Even for us as officers, those days when you want to go on a tanker, you have to do what we call a tanker endorsement course. You can't just, with your normal training for the other cargo ships, you can't go and work in a tanker because it's a specialized area where safety is so high, safety standard is very high. Freight. Whenever there is no provision to the contrary, freight is payable on delivery of the goods, and it will be calculated on the amount actually delivered. Okay, but these days you find out that at first what used to happen is it was even the case in transportation here locally. When those days when you sat in a trotro, it is not until you get your destination before the trotro mate will take the money. But today, the moment you get in, they're just taking his money.
When there's no meat, when there's no meat, they will take before the cow.
That is how it used to be in the calculation of freight. You have to deliver the goods before they would pay you. But these days, often you have in the provision that you pay upfront. Okay, so you pay freight paid in advance. And typically, even in the liner trade, a lot of the times the freight is paid in advance. They don't take it after delivery in the liner. Okay. He said that the calculation of voyage charter freight is either lump sum or per ton basis. We've discussed that already. There are different types of freight. When they put on the charter party freight payable on right and true delivery of cargo at destination, it means that until and unless you bring the cargo to the destination, he's not paying you a peswa, okay? And then the owner has a right to take action against the ship owner if any damage occurs in the carriage of the goods. And the owners of the cargo, however, they cannot refuse to pay the freight unless the cargoes are damaged beyond their commercial value. So whenever you bring the cargo, if, for example, you were bringing wheat and where somewhere along the line because you didn't take good care of the wheat cargo, some of the wheat started sprouting. If it has value for that is the sprouted wheat is, I think, is sprouted maize, I think, is used in the production of beers and so on. So if it can still be used for something, then you have to pay the freight. Okay. You cannot refuse, the consignee cannot refuse the payment of freight if it hasn't lost its commercial monetary value. That is, the goods can still be used somehow for something else. Maybe not for the original intent, but it can be used for something else. And also, if the cargo is even damaged or part of it is damaged, you still have to pay the full freight. You cannot opt to pay only for the ones that are still intact. So if you were carrying, let's say, 10 boxes for a certain freight amount, and then the boxes arrive at their destination and 3 of them are broken up, you still have to pay for the full 10. Okay.